Hi Kishore, can you hear me?
Hi, Prashant.
Hi. I think you'll have to make.
Yeah, I've made you the panelist.
Yeah, I think now it should work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope that's okay. Good. Am I audible or there are any issues with the audio?
No, no, you're clear. You're loud and clear.
Okay. On my headphones, just in case. Yeah, I think it should be better now.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a very interesting topic, Prashant, because all the while I was mentoring folks, right? One of the questions that I always used to get from uh, most of the mentees was, what next, right? So when I've done 3 years in pre-sales, how do I go, beyond whatever I'm doing? How can I become a manager? How can I get the big picture view types, right? So it's going to
Yeah,
be very
yeah.
interesting. And I'm sure your insights and your experience that you've had working across companies like IBM and currently in Oracle, I think it's going to be very, very useful.
Yeah, I think it's also good to see there being an actual community of pre-sales professionals because when we started out, there was no such thing like a pre-sales collective, and it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
only your seniors that you could talk to and just get some insight into it. So, and mostly it
exactly.
was learning on the job. So, I think it's good. Now I see there is a lot of knowledge base that is available. There is a lot of collateral things that you can
Correct,
read through and also.
correct. So we are on the hour. We'll probably give a few minutes for folks to start joining in. And once
Yeah,
they
yeah,
start, and we can get started. So probably give them a couple of minutes.
sure, yeah.
This is going to be even more interesting because this is going to be our uh, first event, so to speak, that we are doing under the pre-sales collective India group, right? So all the while, the APJ session that I've did and the one which Aditya was part of was still under the pre-sales collective umbrella. Now it is going to be more from a local group, the local chapter perspective that is going to be that's going to be leading all this.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a good thing because one is it will bring a lot of people from diverse companies together.
Yeah,
Normally, what happens, and especially from the field that I come from, right? We are into the OEM pre-sales, and that's where there's also a lot of this competitive element which is there, right? So I cannot just go and have a coffee chat with somebody working in SAP or somewhere else, right? So those kind of
exactly.
dynamics are there, but I think this gives a platform for people to come together and share their experiences as pre-sales professionals, irrespective of the products that you work on. So. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Hey, thanks, Arpit. Glad to have you on board as well. See, what you said was pretty interesting because sometime back, um, when we were looking at building a community specifically for pre-sales, right? So this was probably 2 years back when I just was thinking in those lines because I knew there were a lot of communities that were there for developers, for specific technology enthusiasts, for product managers, but there wasn't a clear group that emerged more from a pre-sales perspective. And this is where I think PSC has done a fantastic job, where they've been able to rope in a lot of people across the board, across countries, right? So
Yeah.
uh, hats off to them. Yeah,
I think it's also good because uh, while all of these people come together, it also gives you a direction, and it also see a solution engineering career is all about learning, I believe, right?
exactly.
What you learn from your customers, what you learn from your peers, and so on, and this also gives one more or adds one more channel to that learning. So
Right,
I think this is a very good initiative, in my opinion.
right. Yeah, I completely agree. Thanks, Suresh. Thanks, Krishan, for those messages. Yeah, happy to have you on board, actually. So we'll just give another minute and then we can get started. So the structure of presentation is going to be very simple, guys. So I'm just going to quickly talk about Pre-Sales Collective for the people who are not aware of Pre-Sales Collective. So I'm just going to talk about it. And then I'm going to hand it over to Prashant. So Prashant is going to share his insights on Pre-Sales Career Graph. And then we'll have the Q&A. So we can have the chat going. You can put in your queries, your questions that you have on the Q&A. And then what we would be doing is we will be taking it towards the end of the session, and we will try covering almost all the questions that are being put forward. Yeah, so with that, I'll just give it a minute and I'll get started. There we are, we're at 5 minutes past the hour, and let's get started with today's presentation. Hello, Prashant. Happy to have you on board for today's first ever Pre-Sales Collective India chapters event, where we'll talk about a typical pre-sales career graph and the roles that you play as part of pre-sales. So Kishore, I'll be hosting Prashant today. And before I hand it over to Prashant, I'll just do a couple of quick things. One is for people who are joining us for the first time, a quick intro about Pre-Sales Collective. So Pre-Sales Collective is basically a large community, a global community of 8,000 plus professionals cutting across roles like sales engineering, solution consultants, architects, pre-sales leaders, sales consultants, etc. And also we have a lot of the budding upcoming pre-sales professionals who want to make pre-sales as one of their career choices. So this is a community for them. So if you have not already checked our website yet, I'll ask you to go ahead and check our website. It's presalescollective.com. You will have a lot of options to see how you can interact with the pre-sales leaders globally, and also pre-sales leaders as part of the local chapters as well. So why do you want to join a pre-sales collective? Basically to learn, share your experiences with fellow pre-sales professionals, and also build a very relevant professional network, which is primarily focused on pre-sales and solution engineering. This will also give you a lot of career guidance options, a lot of opportunities to grow, to move ahead in your career. And also for people who've been in this career for a long time, they want to give back and support other professionals. This is one of the avenues for that. So with this, I'll quickly talk about Pre-Sales Collective India chapter. So Pre-Sales Collective was started almost a year back by James Kiakis and Hughie. So what they had done is over a period in time, they had built this community, and what they realized is that having a local chapter is gonna actually be like a force multiplier, where they can have a lot of discussions, a lot of activity going on more from a pre-sales perspective. So with that thought process, they built a lot of local or geocentric groups. So Pre-Sales Collective India is one of those groups. So this is currently being handled by myself, Kishore, and also my partner, Aritya Sridharan, who heads global pre-sales for RFPI. So what we do is we help set up these events. We see what we can do to the community so that the whole community can get, the knowledge and can get the best out of the experience the whole community has got. So this is all about Pre-Sales Collective India. You can reach out to us on LinkedIn or on the Pre-Sales Collective India chapter Slack channel, and we will be able to help you out. So with this, I'll hand it over to Prashant, who's gonna lead the presentation today or do a quick session on the pre-sales career graph in terms of what hats you wear. So over to you, Prashant.
Thanks, Kishore, and delighted to be here talking to all the fellow pre-sales professionals or solution engineers, as we call it now. So just a little about myself. So I lead the ERP and supply chain solution engineering team for Oracle India. Primarily, we focus on the product-centric industry verticals like manufacturing, retail, distribution, and so on. We do work with our customers in a lot of areas, whether it is business processes, whether it is technology adoption or solution architecture, and so on. Prior to this particular role, I was working with IBM, where I was into their global business services division, and I was implementing some of the Oracle products there. So yeah, I think that's a bit about myself. We can move on to the next slide, please. Yeah. So I think we have a packed agenda today for this session. What we want to cover today are four broad areas, right? If you're a solution engineer or if you want to be one, right? What would it take to be successful in this particular role? Right? You'd be doing a variety of work in this role. So what are the skills that you should be focusing on? What skills that you should be accumulating in your repository so that you're successful in future? But we'll also talk about what are the different career options which are there for solution engineers. Where do you go from here, right? And lastly, we'll look at some key enablers or catalysts that can make you grow fast. Right? I don't plan to bore you with too many slides. They're just broad pointers to guide the overall discussion. Right? We'll also devote ample time for questions that the audience may have. So yeah, next slide, please, Kishore. So yeah, I think this is an interesting question, right? I would want all of you to take a few seconds and introspect on this, right? Every one of you will have a different story, right? How did you get here? How did you get into a solution engineering role? So look back into your own journey into solution engineering. When I wasn't even aware of a job profile like pre-sales for the first few years that I was working, right? So normally what happens is nobody joins solution engineering by design, right? There are no kids out there who would say that I want to be a solution engineer when I grow up, right? It's something that happens or it happens as a consequence of something else, right? So I mean, even I just sharing my experience. So I was working in implementation of Oracle products, and probably because of curiosity, communication, or maybe business understanding, or God knows what, I just started getting pulled into helping the sales teams acquire more business. So that's when, from a post-sale and implementation work, I gradually started getting into some bit of getting the business part of the cycle, and that's when I got my first taste of pre-sales. It was very exciting. It was very interesting. I loved it so much that I think 11 years have gone by, and here I am talking to you. So that's a little bit about my story. I'm sure, Kishore, you would have an interesting story to share about your journey.
Yeah, it was more or less similar. So I started off with a testing startup called Maverick in Chennai. So like you did, right? So at that point in time, when I started off, there was nothing like pre-sales at all. There was like, so you do delivery, you do sales, or you do marketing, right? So, or probably you do a fair bit of consulting work. So I was, between consulting and delivery roles. And then suddenly one fine day, I was telling my boss, you know what? I have marketing skills. I have sales skills. Why am I not doing it? So that's when my boss was like, okay, there is something which we've been thinking about called solution architect role. So why don't you try it out? And that's how it started. And it was, like you said, almost 10, 11 years back. And there was, like you said, there was no structure to it. And whatever you learn is on the fly, right? And you make mistakes, you rectify it next time you do it, right? So that's how it has been. I completely agree. There was not set template, to be precise, when we were starting up, I guess. I think I'm sure, like you, like me, people who've been in pre-sales for the last 8, 9 years, they will be able to relate to that, saying, hey, we never started off with a template. And right now we are all converging towards a template, actually, if you look at it from a career standpoint.
Yeah, that's right, Kishore. So, see, I think it's a profile that you gradually move into basis your performance on multiple dimensions. I've seen people come in from development of coding or testing, or even from support backgrounds. People come in from implementations. I've seen people come in from business functions or line of business verticals. Maybe somebody from accounting, somebody from supply chain, moving into technology and then into a solution engineering role. So, I mean, that many of you would have seen that movie, right? Ratatouille, where they say not everyone can become a great artist, but
Yeah.
a great artist can come from anywhere, right? So that I think is that holds true for solution engineers as well. So I think when we look at our journey, right, as to how did you get here, right, it is also important for you to know what is it that attracts you to solution engineering, because that's also something that is going to keep the fire in your belly going, right? It is what powers you. So I would recommend all of you to take a pen and paper and probably list down what excites you about this particular role, right? And it is important because it is also going to decide the career direction that you may want to take, right? Do you like interacting with customers? Do you like solving problems? Do you like or do you love, do you take a lot of pride in knowing a product inside out? Do you love beating your competition to win a deal? That's a very different kind of an adrenaline rush, right? So what exactly is it that actually gets you moving or gets you motivated to be in this role, right? It will require some bit of an introspection, but I think it is important for you, for everyone to know what is it that is powering you as a solution engineer. So that's about how did you get here, right? But then now that you are here as a solution engineer, right, how do you know that you're successful? So if you can move to the next slide, please, Kishore. So I think this is an interesting one. All right, a lot of organizations have their normal metrics, like number of deals that you are supporting, what is your revenue contribution, maybe your resource utilization, how many hours are you spending on solution engineering or pre-sales related activities, and so on. Right, those are very, I think. Those are very objective metrics, right? But then it is important for you to know yourself as to how do you measure your own performance, right? And there are various softer aspects to it, right? It's things like, can you convince the whole ecosystem to do the right thing for a customer, right? For a moment, can you put aside your product and the need to make a sale and think about it from a customer's perspective, right? If you can do that, I believe you will always be successful. Uh, Another good marker could be customers trust, right? Do they call you when they have a problem, right? And problem not just with your product but even otherwise. If they have a problem, do they rely on you to give a sound advice to them, right? Can they take your word for a solution and move on? I have seen, and you would also have seen, a lot of customers which will want you to demonstrate each and every feature, function, nuts and bolts of your product before they want to make a sale, right? But if the customer is trusting you, if they have confidence in you, right, a lot of times you say, yes sir, this is something that can happen in our product, or our product caters to this requirement, and we move on, right? And especially after you have sold something, right, at that point of time also, when you're suggesting a solution to the customer, right, are they taking your word for it, right? And a related point to that is whether your customers are making repeat purchases from you, right? That again is a good marker of how much do they trust you as an individual or as a solution engineer, right? Are you able to expand your footprint at existing install base customers? So that could be another measure of success for you, right? But again, these are very transactional metrics, right? If you go a little deeper into it, and if you think about it, right, as solution engineers, what is it that we are doing, right? We are going to a customer, right? On the face of it, we just understand their requirements or their pain areas, and we suggest a solution using technology or our products, and that's the end of it, right? But then uh, are we able to provoke the customer into looking at their own business with a new eyes, right? Are we able to make them question themselves? Are they doing the right thing, right? Or is there a better way of doing those things, right? Or is there a better way of carrying out those transactions, right? So that's when I think the true worth of a solution engineer actually comes out. So yeah, maybe I can take a pause, and Kishore, you want to
No, I
share?
completely agree, because one of those things that I've learned over a period of time is the amount of conversations I'm able to have with the customer, right? It doesn't matter if I'm converting a deal or not, but it's about how I'm pushing the customer to think about his own process, right? And anytime he sees that he's got a problem with probably someone in the partner ecosystem of theirs, and they want us to explore if we can actually help them. That is where I see is one of the true success that a solution engineer or a solution architect can actually boast of. I mean, there's no other way apart from that, that the customer is actually taking you as a trusted advisor than just a
Yeah.
vendor who's actually providing you with a product or a service. Isn't it, Prashant?
Definitely, yeah. I think, and there is one more dimension to it, or one more way to look at it, right? Maybe some of you would have interacted with some business consultants, right? People like the Accentures, BCGs, McKinseys of the world, right? Do they have a product to sell? The answer is no, right? What they are doing is they are just selling an idea, right? And that's the ultimate test of your ability to do all of these things that we talked about, right? Gain a customer's trust, make them look at their own business, make them think about what is it that they are doing, and then make them realize the problems, or a better way of doing things, right? So I think that is the ultimate level to which you can evolve as a solution engineer, right? And I think what is important personally is what is your learning in the process, right? Are you better today than what you were yesterday, right? You had a customer interaction yesterday, right? Are you able to leverage that? Are you able to make it fit into somewhere into your mental models, into your algorithms, and then make reuse of it when you meet your next prospect, right? Are you carrying forward your learnings from the previous engagements to the next engagements, right? Yeah, I think a lot of people I mean, we do interview a lot of people for our teams and so on, but many times people would come say that, okay, I've got maybe 15 years of experience in this field, I've got 20 years of experience in this field, and so on, right? But then it is important for us to remember that time spent on the job does not equal experience, right? It's how much are you able to digest and make it a part of your thinking process. I think that is what is going to make you a successful solution engineer. So yeah, I think that is my view of success in a solution engineering role. If you can move to the next slide.
Absolutely, Prashant. So to add on to what you said, right? So the conversations that you have, right? Like you said, in pre-sales, we end up mostly pitching sometimes the solution which is more abstract, and convincing the customer to invest in an abstractful solution without any pilot is definitely a test. And like you said, that idea, if you are able to sell to the customer and show value from that idea, I think you've been successful.
Definitely, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just request to the audience, keep posting your questions if you have any, and we'll come back to that towards the end of the session. So I think coming to the core of today's discussion, right? The many hats that you wear as a pre-sales professional, right? So when you're working as a solution engineer, we take on a variety of roles, right? We are doing sales, we are doing some bit of business development related activities. At times we are working as a business consultant. Sometimes we are working as a product expert, right? People look at us as demo jockeys, so that is there, right? Sometimes we are taking on the role of a system integrator and making sure that the solutions that we are selling to a customer, they work in their environment, right? We may have to roll up the sleeves and do the job of a developer as well. You might have to do some bit of code writing if required, right? Sometimes you are working as a support engineer, you're solving the problems of a customer, so you're a problem solver for a customer, right? So there are multiple facets to the solution engineering role that we would be performing at different points in time, right? I think, and each of these come with a set of learnings, right? Each of these comes with a set of skills that can help us, right? We also work with a lot of sales methodologies. You work with deal qualifications. You work with commercial structuring, negotiations, and so on. So that exposes you to a very different kind of a game, if I can call it, right? It's actually like a dance, right? Somebody's making moves. You are making a set of moves. How does the two things converge and end up in making a sale and making sure that the customer is live and successful, right? So that's another element of learning or exposure that the pre-sales role provides you with, right? Then, I mean, people of course relate solution engineering with your functional expertise and technical expertise, but then you're also using a host of soft skills in the process, right? You're communicating, right? You're presenting, so you have that set of skills which come into picture, right? You're doing objection handling with your customers, right? Why, I mean, a lot of people will come with a mindset of why they should not be buying your solution or your product, or why it will not work in their background. So you're addressing you're getting to the root of that objection, what is going on in that person's mind, trying to address it, right? You're holding business conversations. So when you talk to, let's say, a CXO, right, he is not worried about what is the tool set that they are going to use, right? He is more worried about how his business problems are going to get solved by whatever you're proposing, right? How do they look at their business, right? How do you measure the performance of, let's say, a supply chain head, or a finance head, or a CFO, right? So what are the KPIs, what are the metrics that they are interested in? So you're holding some business conversations with people, right? Then as solution engineers, we don't work in isolation, right? We work in a competitive environment, so you also have to be aware of what is happening in the market, what are your competitors doing, right? uh, what are the trends in technologies which are there, what are the emerging technologies which people are adopting, how are they using these when the use case itself is not very sure, right? Or the ROI is not very certain. How do you convince your customer about these new technologies? So each of these things actually is providing you with an exposure, with a set of skills that you're going to use in your career going forward, right? Uh, so yeah, I think that's something which is important for you to understand and appreciate, right? A lot of times what happens is when you're in the thick of a transaction, right, all you are doing is just maybe configuring a demo, showing it to the customer, moving on to the next customer, doing a configuration or a presentation, and so on and so forth. And a lot of times it becomes repetitive, right? But it is important for you to understand all of these other aspects of the job as well, and make sure that you are developing a holistic profile, right, using this particular role. So, I mean, I personally loved this role because of the kind of exposure that it offered, and the kind of learning that it imparted, right? Every day you're talking to a new customer, you're learning some new things about their business. You're getting into multiple industries. Today, I'm talking to a telecom customer. Tomorrow, it's a healthcare customer. Each of them have got very different ways of doing business, different practices. So all of this gives you a lot of learning, which you can then leverage at a later stage of your career. Right? So,
Yeah, so one of the things that I've seen with regards to the many hats that you wear, right, is that you should be a student, a forever student, correct? Because, like you said, you will have to keep yourself updated, abreast with things that are happening with regards to technology, products that are there in the market, and also you will also have to be a, like I said, an amazing communicator. Be it communicating uh, your product value over a presentation, or even or over a written document. Your articulation of the problem, your articulation of value becomes very, very important. Yeah, you do multiple things. You're a collaborator as well. Sometimes when you're working on large scale deals, right? So you are like working with multiple solution architects from other divisions of your company, trying to pull everything together into a single solution. Right? So yeah, many hats. I completely agree on that.
yeah, in fact, since you mentioned that, change management is again one big thing that
Exactly.
a solution engineering role will expose you to, and that's one skill that is going to stay with you forever, right? Whether
Yeah,
you go into any future career role, right? Change
correct.
management is something that is going to be there, and that is going to help you all the way. So that again is something which is very important, right? So yeah, I
I think
think.
change management goes without saying. You implement a solution, it's going to change the client's business, and you sometimes become a change agent also for them. So yeah.
Yeah. So I think, and it's an evolving learning, I would say, right? I mean, it's not that one day you will wake up and you can say that, okay, I have become an expert in change management, right? It's something that you'll keep on learning as long as you work, right? So understanding different motivators of people, communicating what's in it for them, and so on. So I mean, it definitely helps your career. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure if I've missed out on any other thing that people do as part of solution engineering, but I think those are the things that I could think of, right? And those are the most common ones that a lot of you would be doing in your roles, right? So again, just the same request that understand what is it that you're doing, right? How is it adding value to your career and to your personal growth, and move on from there. Yeah. So yeah, I think we can move. So so we have looked at how did you get here? What are the activities that you're doing? What is it that makes you a successful solution engineer, right? And the different activities that you're doing as a pre-sales professional, right? But then where can I go from here, right? Now that I am a solution engineer, right? What are the options that are available for me to grow in, right? What are the different career dimensions that are there? So the most common one, and it is more prominent in established organizations like Oracle and others, right, is the OEM pre-sales hierarchy, right? So you are an individual contributor at an entry level, you grow into your IC levels, and then probably you get into the pre-sales management and pre-sales leadership kind of a role, where you are managing a team of pre-sales consultants or solution engineers, and making sure that you are able to sell your products in the market and achieve the revenue targets and so on, right? So that's one career dimension, or one direction of career that you can take, right, which is into the OEM pre-sales, right? So that's one thing, right? Other than that, then on a long-term horizon, you can look at getting into a role of role in a customer IT organization, right? So whether it is a CIO or CDO or CTO kind of a role, right? Again, you're using one subset of the skills that you acquired as a solution engineer there, right? So you're looking at an organization now, you're working dedicatedly for a customer, right? For an organization, you're looking at their IT landscape. What are the different blocks that make their whole make their whole organization work, right? And which are those blocks where you can have some modernization done, some digital transformation that can happen, right? And then driving those projects through, right? So all those are what a typical CIO, CDO, or a CTO would be doing, right? And pre-sales can actually prepare you for getting into that kind of a role. So that's again a second set of career options that are there in front of you, right? The third one is getting into a function or an LOB, right? So if you are into, let's say, and this is again more from my experience or the path that I followed, right? So if you're working on supply chain solutions, for example, right, or if you're working on finance solutions and so on, so then at a point you might want to join a customer organization in the particular function or an LOB, right? So I may join the CFO office of a customer and then lead the finance modernization in those organizations, right? Or I can go into supply chain or procurement or so on. So that's again a third dimension that I have seen people moving to. Then of course, uh, organizations like Oracle work with a lot of system integration partners, right? So the likes of your the TCS, Infosys, Wipros, and so on, right? The IT and IT-enabled services companies, right? So that's where you can get into a delivery kind of a role. So the products that you were selling, right now, you're responsible for getting them implemented in a customer environment, making sure that the customer is successful, right? So that's another dimension, or that's another direction in which you can take your career, right? You can get into a solution architecture kind of a role, or an enterprise architect kind of a role, where you see how these different applications are talking to each other and working seamlessly, giving the end users a kind of a seamless or a connected experience in their day-to-day lives, right? So that's again another dimension, right? We talked about business consulting that you can get into. So moving away from technology, or even now a lot of, I mean, digital is now everywhere, right? Every consulting organization is talking about digital, right? So you can get into the core business consulting part of it, where you're telling your customers on you're helping your customers around digital transformation or even process improvements, right? So a lot of people who work on these OEM products, right, which are built on best practices, which are followed across the world, right? So people have an exposure to these different ways of carrying out, let's say, a procurement process, right? So now when you get into a customer organization or into a consulting organization, you can guide other customers on what are the best practices that are to be followed when conducting a procurement activity, right? So that's again another direction that you can take. Then I think another interesting area that is coming up is product development, getting into product development. So because you have an exposure of how customers use your products, right? Or what is it that customers or prospects look for in a product, right? You can probably help people with those things, right? So you get into a product development kind of a role, or you get into a product management kind of a role where you're looking at the end-to-end life cycle of a product, right? From a launch, from its adoption, the periodic enhancements that will keep on happening on the product, and subsequently, let's say you sunset a particular version and you come up with a new version of the product and so on, right? So that whole management of the life cycle, management of the change that happens in a product. That is there, right? And I think I've seen a lot of solution engineers get into these roles, right? That the roles that we talked about, whether it is into the pre-sales leadership hierarchy, or whether it into the function, LOB, etc. Right? But one thing that a lot of solution engineers are very tempted to do is sales, and then that's why I kept it for the last. Right? I think uh, it's not for everyone. I must warn you that I mean, on the face of it, it may appear easy, but then it does take a lot of a special set of skills, if I can put it that way, right? So, but see, as part of solution engineering, also we are doing a lot of selling, right? We are going there, we are talking to the customer, we are convincing them about the superiority of our products or our feature function, right? So in a way we are making a sale, right? But then you can go one step further and you can get into a direct frontline sales part of the organization, right? So that's where you manage the commercial part of it, you manage the negotiations part of the cycle, and so on, right? So so those are some of the things that I can think of, right? That pre-sales professionals can get into. So yeah, I think Kishore, at this point, I would like to hear from you as well. What is it that you think, right?
Interestingly, I've taken one of the paths that you also talked about. I've moved into product engineering, not engineering per se, but I'm more a product strategy guy. So at Kriti Labs, apart from managing the pre-sales, I also take care of the product strategy. So I work with the product teams. I also head the product management. So I head the product, I work with the product teams in terms of building the products. So we built a lot of hardware and software, firmware kind of stuff. So I kind of lead that. So like you said, right, that perspective of working for the customer, it'll actually help you move into these kind of roles very, very well. And above everything, what really I see in a pre-sales person or a solution engineer is the thing to solve a problem. Right? When they see a problem, they would want to solve it. And solving problems with using the right set of principles, like you might be using the first principle, or you might be looking at, I personally look at Simon Sinek's golden circles, right? That is my approach of problem solving. Problem solving. So a lot of us actually look at those, and that really helps us solve problems, and that is how it is. And any role that you are getting into, if it helps you to solve customer problems, I would say just go ahead and take it, especially when you are looking to transition while holding back to your pre-sales as well. Like I told very clearly when I joined that I'll still be heading pre-sales, because pre-sales is something which I love doing. And getting into an additional role is a bonus. That's it. So that's how you should also look at it. And I completely agree with what you said, Prashant.
So I think just one more point that I would want to highlight here, and it is about pre-sales leadership, right? So uh, when you are a solution engineer, you are very good at very good at your knowledge of the product, where you're very good at communicating with the customers and so on, right? But then when you move into a solution engineering leadership kind of a role, right, it's a completely different ball game. So I mean, a lot of times people would tend to think that it's just a natural progression of let's say from being an individual contributor to managing, let's say, a team of solution engineers, right? But then it's very different, right? And it also requires a lot of other skills beyond your core solution engineering skills, right? So I mean, it's like a sea change, right? If you are a good solution engineer, right, you'll be a star, you'll always be in demand, right? People will be trying to pull you into all the deals that they can, right? From there, now you become a gatekeeper, right? Because when you're a SE leader, right, your job is to protect your solution engineering team from their bandwidth getting wasted on trivial opportunities or unqualified opportunities and so on, right? So overnight you turn from a friend into an enemy, right, of the sales. So I think that's something that you have to just understand, appreciate, and then I think if there are individual contributors here, I think you should just observe your managers. You should observe the SE leaders that you come in contact with, right, and see what is it that they are working on to give you a clear idea of if you want to move into a pre-sales leadership kind of a role, right? What would it take, right? And then start building upon those skills, right? It will not so happen that okay, you become a pre-sales manager or a solution engineering manager and then you start acquiring those skills, right? So that's something that is there, right? Yeah. So I think that's one differentiation that I just wanted to bring about. But then I think just a couple of minutes more on how you look at your own career, right? There was a very interesting book that I was reading, and the author talked about looking at your career in two distinct halves, right? The first half is when you are learning or acquiring those skills, right? That's where you're preparing, right? It's a preparation stage, and the second half is when you're actually leading, right? A lot of times, what happens is that people in pursuit of growth in the first half of the career, right? People tend, uh, yeah, I think there's an issue with.
Hey, I'm
Kishore, you're
sorry,
there?
I lost power.
Okay, okay.
So
No
I'm just
problem, no problem.
sharing my screen. I'm absolutely sorry.
So,
I'm just
okay, no
bringing
problems.
back. Yeah, share.
Perfect. So I'm not sure if you lost some of the discussion that we were doing, but I was just talking about looking at your careers in two halves, right? And in the first half, dedicate your career to or dedicate your work to acquiring those skills that are going to build that foundation for your next half of the career, right? That's when you actually move into leadership, right? And if you are getting there with half baked skills, right, you will struggle and you'll tend to get stuck, right, at a particular level, and you'll not be able to move beyond, right? So see, because what happens is in the first half of your career, right, you're doing more of the same thing as you progress, right? So let's say that I mean, if I take a solution engineering example, right, initially you're working on, let's say, a smaller set of opportunities, right? As you grow in experience, you're working on slightly larger opportunities, and then you're working on, let's say, multi-million-dollar deals and so on, right? So essentially the nature of work remains the same. You're doing more of the same, you're only doing it at a larger scale, right? If I take a sales analogy, right, you are maybe you're working on a particular territory or a particular district, then you move into managing sales for the whole state, then you're managing sales for a particular country, right? So only the span of control actually increases, but the nature of the work remains the same, right? But when you move into the second half of your career, right, at that point it is all the different learnings that you have had, right? Because in the second half of your career, you'll be faced with more unknowns than ever, right? That's when your true set of foundation skills that you've gathered over time, that is what is going to help you, right? So I think with that, we can move on to the next one, which is around key enablers, or I mean, as catalyst, as you may want to call it, right? What is it that can help your career grow at a faster pace, right? So again, there's no hard and fast rule about it. It's more of learnings on the job and the experience and the observations that I wanted to share. So I think first and most important is that you should get product or technology agnostic. Now that may sound a little counterintuitive, but then see, one part is that these things are changing very fast, right? So essentially, your product or technical knowledge, right, it's only going to help you so far, right? What is more important is the learning habit that you form, right? Because today you have a technology, tomorrow you may have a different set of technology or tools which are available, and then day after tomorrow it will be something else, right? So you cannot just get stuck into one particular bucket of products or technology or stack, right? You'll have to keep evolving, right? So when you step away from this product and technical expertise, become a little agnostic, right, that's when you start focusing on customers business, on the customer needs, and that is what is going to round off your profile as a solution engineer, right? So I think it is important to just look away from your technology stack for a minute and look at the other areas, the other aspects of your business, right? So that's one thing that can help you. The other thing is, and we talked about it in the previous slides as well, was the customer focus that you can bring, right? I think again, it at times, or I think couple of days back, I was looking at an article in on LinkedIn, and there was a quote that caught my eye, right? It said, "Your product demo sucks because it is about your product." Okay, now I would let that sink in, right? The demo that you're doing or the presentations that you're doing, right? Who is it for? It is for the customer, right? So I think bringing that customer focus into your, I mean, you should be breathing and living the customer centricity, right? That is something that is going to be very important for you, right? It at times it may be a tough job because sales will have their own motivations. Your other ecosystem stakeholders may be having a different motivation and so on. But then I think the more customer focused that you can become, the better solution engineer that you're going to be, and the faster you're going to grow in your career, right? So just think about things from a customer's perspective, right? Focus on fundamentals, right? Focus on fundamentals of the business, right? How are things working out, and then just start learning from there and building upon that, right? Again, when I talk about fundamentals, there is again another perspective that I've seen people do, right? Uh, do you look at yourself as a P&L, right? Do you look at how much effort are you investing into something and how much return are you getting out of it, right? That again should become a fundamental part of your thought process, right? That is something that is going to help, right? There'll be a lot of sales opportunities which will keep coming your way. There will be a lot of work, right? And most of I think if we did a poll right now about what is it that bothers solution engineers the most, I think everyone will say it's the workload, right? It's the number of opportunities or it's the number of deals that they have to support, right? There is never enough time for them to time from customer engagements to spend that time on learning and other things, right? So I think it is important for you to look at each and every deal, look at each and every investment of time that you are making, right, and the return that it is giving you, and then calibrate your efforts accordingly, right? So that is what is going to help your personal productivity improve, and that is what is going to give you the time that is required for you to learn, get better at your job or anything else that you want to do, right? Your personal improvement and so on. So I think the point being that never let your personal development take a backseat because of the volume of work that you're supporting. Okay. I think even in those in books like your 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and so on, right? They talk about sharpening the axe, right? If you're not taking time out to sharpen the axe, right, you'll be spending double the effort to cut a tree, right? So that's what it is about. So I think it is important for you to look at your personal productivity and make sure that uh, you're able to prioritize things that require your attention, right? We talked about acquiring skills, right? We talked about the host of skills that a pre-sales role exposes you to, right? It is important for you to make sure that you're making a conscious effort to develop yourself on those skill areas, right? And that will also tie back to the different career options that we talked about, right? So probably if you're getting into a delivery kind of a role, right, your product expertise may play a bigger role. If you're getting into a CI or CDO kind of a role, right, then your focus on digital technologies, agile product development life cycles, and so on may play a bigger role, right? If you're getting into a function or an LOB, right, the business understanding that you get from your customers will play a role. So I think it is important for you to have a directional clarity, right? Where is it that you want to go from here, right? And then basis that, start acquiring those skills and uh, improve yourself, right? So those are some of the things that you can do as you can do in order to probably become better at your job as well as grow faster, right? And I think uh, one important thing, right, that you should all focus on is a mentorship, right? Or I mean, people use networking as a dirty word, but still, I think it is important for you to connect with like-minded professionals, with people who have gone through that journey before you, right, and learn from them, right? it is something which is very important, and most of the times what I've seen is that people are more than willing to share their experiences to help you out, if you want some help and so on, right? People by nature are helping, so I think if you reach out to people for help, definitely you are going to get help and get guidance from people. And it's always to, I mean, see, it doesn't harm you in any way, right? You're hearing somebody's experience, and then you're taking a call whether to uh, how is that going to impact you, right? So I think it is important for you to find people who are doing what you aspire to do, right, and get a mentorship from them. And I think when me and Kishore were having a discussion, and Aditya, we were having a discussion, I think the same point also came up around mentorship and people talking about it. So probably at this point, Kishore, do you want to just share something on that?
So on the mentorship part, right? So I've been mentoring some of the folks for the last I think 10 months, and most of the questions that I always get is in terms of how to progress in their career, how to do well in pre-sales. What are those things that they need to keep in mind? So that kind of comes from my own experience. I can actually tell them, right? So this is what you can do. This is how we can progress. And I've seen and I've heard from them that it has always been helpful, that they had that conversation with me, and they've been able to do the change, right? So mentorship is definitely a way to go about with it, and also having constant discussions with people who are in pre-sales to understand, what to do well, where to go next, and all that. That will really help.
Sure. Thanks, Kishore. Yeah, so I think those are some. I mean, those are some of the points that you can probably think about and build up on. So if you can just move to the next slide, please. Yeah, so I think this brings us to towards the end of what we had planned to cover. So I think some of the points that we discussed were that the SE role exposes you to a broad spectrum of experiences, right? It gives you exposure or a chance to acquire a lot of skills, right? There are various career options to choose from. There are different directions in which you can take your career from being a solution engineer, right? It's important for you to acquire the skills that will bring you closer to your career objectives. It always helps to seek guidance. And lastly, I think in any role that you take from here, customer centricity is something that is going to be very important and critical for your success. So I think those were some of the points that we wanted to cover. I think we can move to taking the audience questions now. Kishore?
Yes, we can do that. And I see a lot of questions on the chat as well as on the Q&A. Let me just pause the share for a bit, and let's look at the Q&A. Okay, I don't know. I have some issue opening the Q&A. Just let me try again. Just bear with me for a minute. Yes. So on the Q&A, so there was a question that came up at the initial this one itself. Do you see a future in pre-sales freelancing, especially for small contract deals like ERP Next? What is your outlook on the same?
I think in India, we have not yet evolved to that extent where organizations trust. See, solution engineering or a pre-sales is a critical activity in getting the revenue for an organization, right? It does require a lot of connects and collaboration within the ecosystem, within the organization itself, right? So if I look at Oracle, for example, right? In my solution engineering role, I would need to talk to my product management, my product development, and so on. If a customer is asking for a particular feature, at times I myself may not be aware of it, or I may want it. The feature is not there, right? So at times I may want to get the product management or product development involved to get it done, right? I may have to talk to. I mean, so see the internal collaboration that is required for you to kind of win a deal or structure a deal, that is so deep that it becomes a bit difficult for you to for you to do freelancing in a solution, right? However, as solutions are becoming more commoditized, right, and more plug and play, I think yes, definitely there is a future for it. But I think the time that it will take, nobody can predict, right? I mean, see, as an organization, for example, right, we have tried various models, including online delivery, right? Till till the year before last, there was a lot of resistance from the field sales folks, from the customers that no, I want somebody to come here, meet me, and then I will buy a product, right? Because for them, that personal interaction was very important, right? But then now with COVID and everything, right, most of our discussions, almost all our customer discussions are happening online, and people have got tuned to that virtual delivery model, right? So I think similar thing can happen with freelancing and solution engineering as well. And again, it depends on the nature of product, right? If the product is not I mean every product is complex, of course, but then if the nature of usage of your product is a little heading towards the commoditization, right? In that case, it may happen sooner. Yeah. So that's my view on freelancing.
Thanks, Prashant. So we have a question from Mayuri. How do we build that level of confidence with the client that he starts thinking of us as trusted advisors? Sometimes the clients think that they know it all.
I would just have a problem with the word sometimes. I think it's every time the customer thinks that they know it all. But I think, see,
Yeah.
it's a gradual process, right? It will not happen overnight. So, see, customers can sense, right, when a person is confident, when a person is trying to evade a question, or they're trying to kind of sidestep something and so on, right? So I think it is very important for you to be very honest and transparent with the customer, right? If you are giving them a glimpse of how you are putting their interest before the organization, right? I mean, see, when a customer comes to me and he says that, okay, I've got this particular requirement, right? Now I may do 100 types of jugaad and then say that, yes sir, I have product can meet your requirement. But then at times I also have to go and tell the customer that, no sir, it's better that you look at this particular product, or you talk to somebody else and get this functionality, or being honest and upfront with the customer that, look, this is what my product will do, this is what my product will not do. Right. So I think honesty is something that definitely helps in building that customer trust, right? If they see you giving an impartial judgment about their problem, right? I think that is what helps, right? And then, of course, being there when they need you, right? So, I mean, in pre-sales, it is very easy for us to go and say that, okay, now that the sale is done, my job is over. Sir, you bought my product, now you deal with it. So, but then if you're there, if you're hand holding them, if you're solving their problems, I think that is how that confidence starts building, right? It's like a debit card, right? You have to put in some balance into it before you can withdraw from it, right? So I think it's like that. That is how your customer trust will start getting built, and then you can leverage that. Yeah.
So there are quite a few questions that are coming up now as we speak, and unfortunately we have just 5 more minutes. So I'll just quickly take another, which is from Aditya. So his question is, how important is to stick to a domain for growth? For example, supply chain. By sticking to one domain, are we limiting our knowledge to only industry-specific use cases? What are your thoughts on this? Interesting one, actually.
So I think in the early parts of your career, it is important for you to stick to a particular domain, because unless you see, it's about understanding the full life cycle, whether it is of a process, whether it is of a project or a product, right? So see, for example, if I take that supply chain case itself, right? Now supply chain will consist of multiple functions, right? Somebody may go very deep into procurement, somebody else may be going very deep into maintenance, somebody else may be going very deep into manufacturing, another person may go deep into sales and order management and so on, right? But then unless you stick to supply chain, right, and you start, see, it's I mean, some of you would have heard of that T model, right? So you have a kind of a broad set of horizontal skills, and then you have a deep skills in one particular area, at least one area, right? So I think that is a model that we can follow, right? We need to go deep into a particular domain, right? And that's where the real understanding comes in, right? That's when you start understanding, appreciating what goes on in that particular business, right? Now, as far as the growth part is concerned, right? One is that this gives you the ability to go beyond your role, right? Unless you understand a domain completely, right? People will not feel confident enough to give you that responsibility of managing that domain end to end, right? So I think that's where growth can. So knowledge of your particular domain or sticking to a particular domain can become important for you to grow, right? Now, if I look at it from, let's say, any specific industry or technology stack, right? Again, the same P model is what you need to look at, right? So let's say if you're into testing, right? How deeply do you know testing? Plus, you also know what happens before testing, what happens after testing, right? So that is the kind of a model that you should follow in order to make your profile better and better suited for growth, right? So I think, yeah.
So Prashant, we just have 2 more minutes, so I'll take probably two questions. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, guys, I have a suggestion. So if you have any more questions, right, you can drop it onto the Slack channel for India. So where myself, Prashant, and Aditya will try compiling them and start answering them with our discussions with Prashant. So I'll take one question which seems to be very interesting because it comes from a fresher, I believe. So his question is for someone who's a fresher when it comes to pre-sales, but with prior experience with other areas like testing. What are the areas that should he read about and prior to attending interviews? I think this is for someone who's transitioning from a testing role to pre-sales.
Okay, so I think see, if you don't have a prior pre-sales experience, then I think you have to just look at the skills that we talked about, right? All those different skills that are required for a pre-sales professional, right? Whether it is whether it is understanding of the business processes or whether it is solving customer problems and so on, right? So you just look back at your profile, you just think about how you have supported or how you have demonstrated those skills in the current role that you had, right? That is how you build a case for a successful transition from any other role to a pre-sales role, right? So just think of that. What is it that you are required to do as a solution engineer, right? And I think we covered some of this during the session, right? So look back at that, look back at those things which a pre-sales professional is required to do, look at your own experience, right? Try to connect the dots there, and then build a case of why your profile will be, or why you are a good candidate for taking up a pre-sales role, right? And of course, right, I think now people have become much more open to hiring people from diverse backgrounds, even people not having a experience of that particular role, right? So I think if you are able to justify why you want to be into pre-sales, and if you can justify that you have the necessary skill sets which are required to get into pre-sales, then I think it'll be easy for you.
Thanks, Prashant. I think we are on the hour, so I'll quickly wind up today's event. So guys, any more questions that you might have, please post it into the Slack channel. So if you have not already registered on the Slack channel, the simplest thing that you need to do is go onto the portal, presalescollective.com. You can go ahead, register there. You will get a invitation to join our Slack channel, and there you can join our Slack channel. On the Slack channel, you have already 3,000 plus people already in. And in the Slack channel, you also have an India specific community. So you can head to that community and also post in your questions based on the event that we had today. And also you can reach out to multiple other pre-sales leaders. And there are also other channels that you can be part of, where you can contribute, where you can learn, and you can grow yourself as a pre-sales leader. So with this, I would like to thank Prashant for a wonderful opportunity where he actually shared his experiences of how he and his insights on the career development from a pre-sales perspective. And with that, we will be concluding our session today. And please stay tuned with us on the Pre-Sales Collective Slack channel, and you will be hearing from us soon on the next set of events that we are planning for the India Geo chapter. Thank you. See you all later.
Thanks, Kishore. Thanks, Aditya, for giving this opportunity, and thanks everyone for joining in. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks, everybody.